Well, I have played about 66 hours of Monster Hunter Wilds. This game has given me something that I haven't felt in a very long time. How to describe it to you? It's really hard to. To me, it feels like Wilds has given me a sense of discovery again, a sense of joy, a sense of delight. It's a game for the purpose of just being a game. It just wants you to play it. It just wants to be played. It begs to be played. It's a terrific experience, honestly, that it's been very hard to put down. I usually don't lock in like this, and I haven't in a very long time, but there's just something about the way that the progression system and the natural process of things that just is extremely addictive. You know, the last time in my YouTube career anyway that I was really locked in a game like this was, well, the 2.0 patch for Wuthering Waves. But that's different because I treat gacha games in kind of a different way, where I'm there for the story and then I kind of do a little bit of leveling up and then I kind of just go about my merry way, right? But Warframe was the last one, and Guild Wars 2 are the two games that I have the most hours of on Steam. Destiny 2's in there as well, but it doesn't count quite as much just due to the infrequency with which I play it. Man, I kind of knew that I was going to get really excited about Wilds, but it wasn't until it really came out that I really became just voracious over it. I remember when Monster Hunter World came out in 2018, I think. Played that for about 115 hours, and I was just obsessed. I played as a light bowgun. It was really fun, but I was also really afraid and incredibly confused. I was afraid because the monsters are actually really scary, and World really, I don't know, in a lot of ways brought those monsters to a more, I don't know, there was a quality or a sheen on World that I felt the older titles didn't necessarily have, or certainly that the older titles were really difficult to comprehend and understand. I remember when Monster Hunter Generations Ultimate came out on the Switch, I played it for a little bit and I was like, man, I do not know what the hell is going on here. I know. And I immediately turned it off, and that was that. I never picked it up or played it again. But it wasn't until World where I started to like, oh wow, this is really fun. Monsters are really cool. I love the fact that it's really cool to see what my Palico's armor is going to look like, or wow, I wonder what the armor will look like when it comes to wearing it, or what the weapons will look like based on, you know, the monsters. And in reality, the cycle, I think, and the reason why these games tend to be so addictive and so rewarding is that you never quite know what you're going to get. There's always a sense of discovery there, isn't there? And I think that's it certainly continued to expand as the games have gone on, but it's been really fascinating to experience this at the height of it on release in sort of a YouTube format, I guess, due to my career currently. Experiencing this game alongside folks has been really a delight and a pleasure. What is it even to say? I mean, it's hard, you know. I don't want to make an 8-minute video talking about all the good things and how much I enjoyed it, because it's pretty obvious. I mean, 66 hours is an insane amount of time for me, and I really don't have this much time. In fact, today I had literally had to do a laundry list of my actual responsibilities, like as an adult, that I've put off, but it's really reinvigorated my love for video games. I'd be hard pressed to find a game that will really match the highs that Wilds has provided in these past 66 and then some hours that I've experienced with it. If you're watching this, you probably feel the same way. You probably connect with Monster Hunter probably even deeper than I do. I'm excited for you. I'm excited to see where this game goes. I'm excited for them to, you know, pad out and fix the optimization so that more people can experience the game, because this is definitely not a mixed experience. And a lot of those folks are frustrated, and I think rightfully so. It's hard with a game like this to make sure that every single computer on the planet can function and run it. Other than a couple little bits of texture pop in, my particular rig didn't really have any problems, but I'm also a streamer / YouTuber, so naturally I try to maintain, like, you know, the highest quality I can, because that's my job. So I can't really say like, well, just get a better rig because this shit's expensive. I do hope that they fix those optimization issues. This was the first game of the series where I've played a melee weapon. And I went with the switch axe. I thought I was going to go with the charge blade, but then I ended up going with the switch axe. And maybe it's because I love Bloodborne. I don't know why I gravitate towards these weapons that change shapes and sizes. But admittedly, the switch axe, I loved it. I love it. I love it. I don't think I'll ever have another main. It doesn't seem realistic. I've tried several of the weapons, and I always feel like I'm coming home to the switch axe. And I think that's something worth being celebrated about this series in general, is that when you find a weapon that clicks with you, it really clicks. And that's something I don't really see in a lot of other games. The sense of ownership over a weapon is a fascinating one. You know, you always hear people talking about like, oh, Hammer Gang Rise Up, or Bonk, or, you know, Charge Blade Gang, or Swax. There's Hunting Horn for Life, or, you know, Doot Doots. There's a certain kind of celebration that happens when you talk about weapons that people main, or, you know, a sense of ownership. Or, you know, look at any YouTuber. I mean, look at like Rurikhan, one of the more prolific YouTubers for Monster Hunter. Gunlance main, you know, Shields Up, Iron Breakers and stuff. So naturally, there's a real ownership over one's weapon, which I think is really delightful. Of course, the monster variety here has been really fun too, and I didn't expect to love the spider monsters as much as I did. La Labarina especially having my favorite armor set next to Jindahad, and certainly my favorite Switch Axe weapon looks. And yeah, I can't wait for them to do layered weapons. I mean, and musically, I mean, what's there to say? I mean, you know, it's interesting. Monster Hunter is interesting to me because Monster Hunter, when I first started talking about this music in these games, I was kind of intimidated by it because I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. When confronting a monster's theme, what does that even mean? And as it turns out, those themes that are designated to specific monsters are no different than a theme that you would hear in a Guilty Gear or a, you know, I don't know, any other game that has characters related to them. These monsters are as living and breathing as they can be through a screen. Hearing Arkveld roar, watching it lumber about, taking on a random enemy in the plains, like, you know, a Chotacabra running past a Kumatrice or a whatever, Balahara attacking Deshaguma. Like there's something so alive about both World and this particular game that is really wonderful to witness. Now, I will say that I definitely feel like this game is more of a to B sort of direction, right? You can just push up on the D-pad and you're sacred, which another wonderful addition will just go where it needs to go, which is not totally dissimilar to Rise, I suppose. And in chat, when we talked about this, in fact, the similarities here is if you take World and Rise, combine them together, you do kind of get Wilds. I certainly don't think that's a problem, because Rise has its charm and has things about it that are really, really great. There's a speed to it. There's an efficiency in the way that Rise functions that I really like. You know, you just go from point A to point B and get started on that hunt, whereas World was much more about exploring the world, obviously, you know, finding the investigation clues, leveling up your sort of investigations with certain monsters. That was all part of like a carrot to chase for people that was really, really fun. And Wilds doesn't really have that, but what it does have is this openness, especially with the forest and the plains section, where it feels just so expansive, like it goes on forever, like it's basically a giant open world. These hubs are massive, and that really should be celebrated. I do have one pet peeve about that, though, is that the later aspects of this really are, and a point of feedback, I guess, would be to make sure that we're continuing to see these open landscapes, whether it's a wintry, snowy mountain peak area or a cityscape, you know, ruins of a city or what have you. Everything kind of feels very samey at a certain point. It's like the fire area, the ice area, the old historic area, which that last section in particular just literally just feels like a bunch of hallways, a big circular hallway. So I think like it's sort of wasted on Wilds, because Wilds has such a terrific opportunity to be so expansive. You know, we even see it with the monsters. I mean, Jindahad, Arkveld, Ray Dow, you know, all the apexes really, besides Uthduna, which no offense to Uthduna, it's kind of charming the more I fight it, but it's definitely the weakest of the apex monsters for me. But like, it's incredible to see it. I mean, the monsters are terrific in this game. And I can't wait to like circle back and have a conversation in a year, let's say a year and a half, where suddenly, you know, we'll have a 100 monster roster or even a 60 monster roster, and we'll be like, wow, can you believe that there was a period of time where we only had 29 and had to fight the same two frequently between Gormagala and Arkveld for, you know, getting the 3-star decos or the level 3 rarity decos. It's a really exciting thing to think about where this game's going to go, and also all the collabs that are coming up inevitably, and also just the longevity of the game in general. There's so much that is lovingly poured into these games. It's always really exciting to me, and I really didn't participate in it too much with Worlds, so with Wilds I'm really actively going to change that, because it's just a terrifically addictive thing. I went on a tangent talking about monsters. The music was really intimidating for me when it comes to Monster Hunter, and I always got a little bit nervous about how to talk about the personality traits of monsters, because that's something really interesting to me. Is like, how does a composer or a group of composers take a personality of a living organic thing that doesn't speak, it doesn't communicate? How are we able to create personality out of these massive lumbering giant beasts? And consistently, the music of Monster Hunter does it, and does it really well. You know, we hear the size, the pain, the tortured, almost prisoner quality in Guardian Arkfeld's theme, right? We hear the massive size of Jindahad. We hear the sort of primal legendary status in the horns. There's a regal invitation that Jindahad presents us with, right, when we fight it. The rage in Rei Dao's theme, the storm itself. Rei Dao is the storm that is approaching. The incredible horns in its main motif, and that's actually something that pops up quite a bit in this game, is horn motifs. And one of the things that I find really interesting about Monster Hunter Wilds soundtrack is the fact that most of these pieces have very short melodic bursts, and all of them revolve around horns. You see it in Nu Udra's theme. We see it in Jindahad's theme, even though the organ is more prevalent in that. And stay tuned for a future video, if it's not out already, with me breaking down Jindahad, because those three phases are phenomenal. And you also get it with Arkfeld's theme. And it's interesting how those three pieces are essentially climaxes based around horns, which is a different approach than previous pieces. So it's interesting because the fights occur, and there's a lot of sort of musical noise, but then there's a center point where we as listeners are drawn into this moment. And this moment is always horn laden, which is kind of interesting. I also find that the pieces, musically, everything, it's very wide. Now, I think part of that has to do with the fact that this world is big. I mean, even the small circular areas that I mentioned, especially in video games, the melody tends to be like the leading dominant force. And in Monster Hunter, pretty frequently, you have like a corner that's recognizable, right? In Safajiva, you have the I am a happy sailor, or whatever that phrase is. You get it with Fatalis too. It's got that the village theme that pops in there, it sounds weirdly like Rachmaninoff. Like there's always these moments that are musical motivic highlights, but they don't always stick around. They tend to go. What does repeat quite often is the large and small and medium monster music, and that tends to stay pretty melodic, and we do get many examples of that. Actually, Wounded Hollow is definitely my favorite. There's also the Ice Cave one. Those two are definitely highlights to me, so I don't remember the names of the ice wind wait, I don't know what it's called, but the Wounded Hollow's got this gorgeous guitar. Definitely gonna sit down and listen to that and analyze that too, because there's so many little things that are happening in that. But yeah, so it's interesting how Monster Hunter gets away with creating powerful motivic movement and powerful melodic movement in very short bursts. Raging Brachiosaurus gets this too. And these monsters really have massive personalities. Now, massive because some of them are massive, but massive also because you can really pinpoint the way that a monster behaves based on its music. And then that's cool because that music influences its movement and so on and so forth, right? The movement influences the music influences our perception of it. And that's why music is so important to the series. In reality, there are many, many, many musical scores that I believe could sound or exist in a symphony hall and would not be conflated with video games. They would just be scores that you would hear in a symphony hall alongside Bartok or Berg. I don't know why the B names are coming up, or Wagner or Beethoven or Mozart, right? Monster Hunter as a series also fits that category to me. In fact, I think that Monster Hunter is one of the strongest contenders, and there's several others that would exist within the classical lexicon. And literally you could be like, hey, oh my God, have you heard this piece of music? And some random subscriber to a symphony would be like, oh no, who is this? You'd be like, oh, it's such and such. They'd be like, oh my God, is that a new composer? They have no clue. This particular soundtrack is just so expansive, a real leaning in on the movie music style, but not losing itself. It's still very melodic. You know, New Udra's theme, for instance, we still really connect with the fact that it's like kind of a terrifying thing. There's a lot of brass in this particular the soundtrack. I just loved it. Soundtrack wise, it was a 10 out of 10, to the point that I don't even know how to describe it to you because I loved it so much. I don't know if that's possible or if you understand that, but that's definitely like how I feel about it. To close, I mean, I really just think that this game is incredible. In a lot of ways, it sounds really hyperbolic, but this game's kind of been a miracle for me. I feel really grateful that this is my job. Like, I love being a YouTuber. I love doing this. I love talking about music. I love being able to play games. I love having people in an audience on Twitch or YouTube hanging out, talking about games or music or playing a game. But oftentimes that there's a certain rote quality to that, like any job. And being able to sit down and stream and play Monster Hunter basically every day reminded me of why I love video games and why I love playing them. Not just for people, but for myself. And I'm really thankful for it. I love the grind. I love getting the armor sets. I love getting the weapon sets. I love playing it in such an easy way with people where if it's just like, oh, I want to go help somebody, pop an SOS, boom, you're there. Now, playing with friends, an abomination. I don't know what they were thinking. A 3 out of 10 experience with trying to play with your friends until you figure it out. And then you're like, what the hell? Why are we doing this like this? That and wanting the maps to be a little bit more varied, considering how beautiful the open spaces are my two biggest complaints about the game. And also the fact that, like, you know, it's kind of unoptimized, but I can't really complain about that too much because I didn't really have my problem there. So yeah, Monster Hunter Wilds is an early game of the year, if not the game of the year for me personally. And I know that we're really quick to throw that word around, and what does it even mean? But I've just had such a wonderful, miraculous experience with this game. Hopefully you've enjoyed it too. I'd love to know what your thoughts are about Monster Hunter Wilds in the comments below. Thanks a ton. Hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you enjoyed my thoughts. There's lots more Monster Hunter on the channel and lots more to come, of course. And as always, thanks a ton, and I'll see you later.